This summer has been pretty rough, especially when you're trying to move into a new house when you live in the middle of Florida in the middle of the summer. But to be honest, it's not the 95 to 100 degree weather that's rough, it's the humidity. And if you happen to have a newer house like we do, there's a good chance it didn't come with ceiling fans installed, which means even though you might set your thermostat to 70 degrees, all that air ends up sitting around, making every room feel stagnant and honestly kind of gross. To which you might say, well, it is Florida, so just get a fan. And we did. Two, actually. But I didn't want just regular old fans. This is a tech channel after all, so when Dreo reached out to us to send some of their fans, we couldn't say no. And while they didn't sponsor this video, they did provide us with the two fans you'll see in this video. But as usual, no money changed hands, and Dreo did not get to see this video before it was uploaded. So the first one they sent over was their 519S tower fan, which was super simple to set up with basically just the base and the fan in the box along with a small remote. The first thing you'll notice is the large display on the front with some capacitive touch buttons which lets you control fan speed, oscillation mode, and more. It has up to 9 fan speeds ranging from a near silent whisper up to what feels like a pretty solid gust of wind despite how quiet it is. And I think that's what really stands out to me with this one. You can easily tuck it away in the corner of a room and just let it do its thing without A, having an ugly eyesore in the middle of your house, or B, deal with listening to a fan run all day. We actually keep this one in our bedroom because we prefer to sleep when it's cooler, and it's been perfect for that, especially since it oscillates up to 90 degrees, which if placed correctly can give your entire room a nice sweep of cool air. And speaking of noise, one thing I appreciate is being able to both shut off the display as well as turn off the sounds of the buttons, making it easy to change speeds or modes without waking anyone up in the middle of the night. It's about 43 inches or just over 3.5 feet tall and about 6 inches wide, meaning you can easily tuck it into a corner in almost any room, which I think is probably the best place to put it so it's both out of the way but also maximizes its full range of motion. One thing you'll notice is that the impeller, which is the thing inside that moves the actual air, is only about 17 inches tall, which is significantly shorter than the overall fan. Dreo says it can move 1,076 cubic feet per minute, or CFM, which sounds, well, probably like a whole lot of nothing if you don't know what that actually means. So imagine a box. That box is 1 cubic foot, and a fan with a 1 CFM rating could move all the air in that box in 1 minute. Not super impressive, right? Now imagine over 1,000 of those boxes. This fan can move all the air of all those boxes combined in a single minute. A little more impressive. But boxes of air don't really mean a whole lot when it comes to cooling down a room. So how big of a room is that? Well, that's about the size of a 10 foot by 12 foot room with a 9 foot ceiling, which is conveniently about the size of an average bedroom these days. So if you put all that together, this fan can effectively move all the air inside your room in 1 minute, meaning you'll feel the effects much faster than a fan with less cooling power. And in order to do that, it can push air up to 26 feet per second, meaning you'll feel the breeze even from across the largest room in your house, all while being unnoticeably quiet. For the most part. Of course, when you crank it to max speed, you're gonna hear it a bit, but only if your house is completely quiet. And to be honest, the only time you would need to have it that high is if you have people over, which I can personally say does make a difference, especially in the summer. In other words, this is the perfect fan for a bedroom or a living room where you'd like to keep it looking clean and tidy while also eliminating any unwanted noise while watching TV or sleeping. We've been using it for over a month now, and quite honestly, couldn't live without it. So much so, we're considering buying one for our living room. And speaking of price, the 519S is about $90 on the Dreo website. But at the time of recording, they do have a 10% off code you can use, dropping it down to about $80, which even though I honestly don't know a whole lot about the fan market, I would say $80 is a pretty solid deal for a tower fan that looks nice, performs well, and has an actually good app. Yeah, I kind of forgot to mention that these fans are actually smart fans. Normally, I'd say most Wi-Fi enabled appliances that aren't actual computers or tablets have awful app experiences. So much so you probably never use them. And to be honest, that's what I expected from Dreo. But I was completely wrong. And we'll get to that at the end because we do still have another fan to cover. So, the other fan they sent us was their 508S TurboPoly air circulator. Now, without getting too in the weeds about what makes a fan an air circulator versus just a fan, and why some fans use impellers instead of propellers, all you need to know is that an air circulator moves air in more than one direction, often referred to as 3D airflow. This means the TurboPoly's head can oscillate not just side to side like most single direction fans, but also up and down, which when combined means it can move air in virtually any direction you want, or just move air evenly within a space. And instead of just 90 degrees of side to side oscillation, the TurboPoly can do up to 120 degrees, as well as 120 degrees up and down. This can help evenly disperse the air to make the room feel more consistently cooled as opposed to only cooling one specific area of a room. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's going to feel dramatically different from even the tower fan, but instead of sticking this in the corner of a room, you could actually put this in a more central space, like between your kitchen and your living room, and have it circulate the air from both spaces at once. It's rated for 1000 CFM and can produce wind up to 26.3 feet per second, similar to the tower fan, but instead of blowing in only one direction, the TurboPoly can move that air in any direction, even if you point it straight up, and use it almost like a ceiling fan. I've personally been using it in my office for the past month, which is a perfect spot because my office is at the front of the house and receives more sunlight than any other room. Not to mention, since it only has windows on one side, it often gets warmer on the window side, creating some hot spots within the room. For fun, I actually took a thermal recording of the room without the fan running, just so you can see the temperature of the walls and surrounding areas within my office after sitting in the sun all day. On average, the walls and surrounding air reached over 75 degrees Fahrenheit, reaching nearly 80 in some spots, even though my AC is set to 70. The next day, I turned the TurboPoly back on, and you can see that while it's not an air conditioner by any means, it did lower the overall temperature of the walls by about 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, I'm not an expert, so take what you see with a grain of salt. But what I can tell you is that it felt much cooler than it did without the fan running, even when the fan wasn't blowing directly on me. I even tested my arm to see what the temperature difference was, and well, you can see for yourself that being in the room with the fan on reduced my skin temperature by about 5 degrees, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it does feel like a lot, which is what matters. And while I wouldn't recommend keeping your door closed with a fan in it, the TurboPoly still managed to evenly cool my office, making the room overall much more comfortable to be in for extended periods of time. As far as looks and aesthetics, I think Dreo did a nice job making the TurboPoly look classier than other fans in its class by giving you several colors and textures to choose from, ranging from this white and light wood color to a more black and dark wood color, along with a starlight color, which looks like that light rose gold color Apple uses. It also has an adjustable height, albeit pretty short, and a weighted base that keeps the fan stable from wobbling even at its max speed, which, let me tell you, is both loud and powerful. It has 10 speeds, ranging from 1 to high, which is more for rapid cooling. Speaking of noise, while the TurboPoly is noticeably louder than the tower fan at pretty much all levels, it wasn't ever enough to bother me. If you're a fan of white noise, then this will definitely not bother you. But if you're particularly sensitive to fan or white noise, you might want to look more towards the tower fan. It also comes with a remote, which is convenient, especially if you're not much for apps and such, and I wouldn't blame you. It's a fan, not a computer. It also has this RGB LED ring on the back, which I thought was pretty cool. But again, it's a fan. So thankfully, you can turn it off if you're going for a more subtle look. The TurboPoly 508S comes in at $130, which compared to other fans like this is a pretty solid price point for the features, especially when you consider the app. Which, before we wrap this up, I wanted to look a little more at the Dreo app because this has got to be one of the best designed smart appliance apps I've ever used. In here, you can not only add all your Dreo products, but you can actually split them by rooms, allowing you to control each room rather than just one device at a time. So whether you have just one fan or 10, the app lets you sort and organize all these devices so you don't have to try and adjust each one individually. This also means you can quickly turn on or off all the devices in a single room or even all the devices in your house at once. And if you're really into smart home stuff, you can even set it up with Siri shortcuts, removing the need to open the app altogether. And while this is probably a bit advanced for me, since I only have 2 fans, the scalability of it all makes you want to add more Dreo products to your home, which is super smart because the Dreo store is actually built right into the app. As far as control, you can select fan speed, mode, and adjust things like oscillation or lighting depending on your device. This is also where you can perform a temperature calibration, which helps the auto mode do a better job at keeping the room at a reasonable temperature, which is probably my most used feature. And if you're using a TurboPoly fan, you can even manually adjust the head position to exactly where you want it. Or maybe it's just plain hot and you want as much air as possible. You can swap over to turbo mode, which pushes the fan to its maximum speed. Then there's custom, which lets you control the auto fan speed per temperature block, or in other words, your own fan curve based on ambient room temperature. And for the tower fan, there's even a guide on how to clean the vent, which if you own pets is a nice bit of information. And if you're wondering, yes, these perform very well despite all the black lab hair around our house. Overall, probably the best smart device app I've used, period, and makes Dreo products worth your consideration for the app alone. At this point, the amount of CFM or wind speed doesn't really matter so long as the fan actually works and is relatively quiet, which means standing out requires a different approach these days. And I think the app experience from Dreo is exactly what makes them stand out as a better choice than your run-of-the-mill fan in 2025. Take a generally great fan and layer in an excellent smart home app experience with a reasonable price, and you've got yourself a real solid choice when looking for your next smart home purchase. If you're looking for a fan to keep you cool for the rest of the summer, I highly recommend checking out Dreo. But that's gonna be it for this one. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button, and as always, make sure to subscribe to see more content like this, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.